Nikachu, I hate all this ban talk on your channel. How would you feel if Aether Vial got banned? I'm gonna tell you, I would not care at all because I would just adapt and evolve and make 5-0s with Merfolk anyway. Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and today I want to go over not only just a hypothetical deck, but also potentially a new way to approach Merfolk going on in the future, going into 2020. And I've designed a vial-less Merfolk list that has gone 5-0 on Magic the Gathering Online, just crushed my opposition, and I did it for two reasons. The first is that I get so many comments around like ban season about people thinking I'm not sensitive to people's cards getting banned. They always say, Nikachu, how do you feel about Aether Vial getting banned? And I know that we still got the core of the deck. I'm just going to adapt and evolve. That's how a master would do it. Would Sodek drop Dredge just because Golgari Grave Troll got banned? Absolutely not. He just kept playing with what he had, and he kept winning with Dredge. And the second reason is that I actually think there's a strategic purpose to taking the Vial out of the deck. Ever since the printing of Force of Negation and Brazen Borrower, which have a CMC of 3 mana. So, but before we get into that, we're going to thank our sponsors, starting with themanabase.com, your home base for everything Magic the Gathering, and the MTG Mastermind, the coaching program to take your game to the next level. You want to learn from people who make top 8s at Grand Prix and go to the Players Tour. You're going to want to learn from them at the MTG Mastermind. And lastly, Card Hoarder, your online digital service for buying and borrowing Magic cards. We're going to thank Card Hoarder for being our sponsor, because Card Hoarder was certainly the one that helped me get the Royal Scions. So let's go over the first point, because a lot of people, they always say that. When I was happy about Faithless Looting getting banned, when I was happy about Mox Opal getting banned, they're like, Nikachu, what if Aether Vial got banned and your deck was killed? My deck would not be killed. Why? Because we still have the core of the deck. We still have the Island Walk Lords. We still got Silvergill Adept. We still have Merfolk Trickster. I still have Counterspell. Still got Spreading Seas. What makes the deck is still there. The fact that I just lose one card shouldn't mean that the deck is completely rendered unplayable. There's a lot of people who think Merfolk's not even playable in the first place because it's got like 1 or less % of the metagame. So, losing Vial doesn't matter. And same thing I'm telling you to the Mox Opal people. Look, innovate your deck. If your deck completely hinged on that one card, then your deck was that one card, and you were basically cheating with that thing. So, try to figure out how to build your deck without that card, without Mox Opal, without Faithless Looting. The decks can innovate. You still got the core of the deck there. Don't dump it. It's up to you. And it's up to other players to innovate those sort of lists. But I wouldn't care at all, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't care if Aether Vial got banned. I would not blink for a second. There's always a way to build your deck even without it, and this is what it looks like. Now the second reason I guess it was because of the ban. Everyone's complaining about me not showing sympathy for banned cards, which really pushed me to do this. But I was already leaning on the idea of taking Aether Vial out of the deck, and I can explain why. Because ever since the printing of Force of Negation, this ended up being like, of course you, in theory, could just hard cast it for 3 mana, but in practice that wasn't really happening, because when you are playing with an Aether Vial deck, you're rarely getting to 3 mana on curve, like to 3 lands. You can have an Aether Vial in 1 land or an Aether Vial in 2 lands, but getting to that 3rd land is hard. It's really hard, and then even against the attrition-based matchups or control matchups where we might take out some mana sources like a land, it gets even harder. So Force of Negation is always a 2-for-1. Not only that, Force of Negation becomes more damaging the more I mulligan. So whenever I mulligan and I see a Force of Negation, well, I have to get rid of one of my lands or one of my mana sources to keep my hand threat dense, and then Force of Negation is again it becomes like more damaging when I mulligan. And if I want to keep the 3 lands, then I got to get rid of like some threats, and I'm gonna have like 3 lands, force negation, 2 threats, and the hand feels sort of threat light. And the same thing happens with Brazen Borrower, because if you want to use the Petty Theft on this, and I do, I love the Petty Theft on Brazen Borrower. It's an excellent ability. I've been using it a lot, and that's why I'm jamming for Brazen Borrower in my Merfolk lists if I can. You can't vial this thing in play. You have to hardcast it for three mana. But in the Aether Vial deck, it's so clunky. You don't have that 3 mana by turn 3. You don't even have it by turn 4 or turn 5 many games. So because of that, it felt like the Aether Vial version, like Brazen Borrower in an Aether Vial deck, did feel pretty clunky. The creature is free, but there's so many times I just want that creature immediately. Like I don't have anything to do with my 2 mana, and I don't want to tick my vial up to 3 at any point either. And I would wait, and if I tick my vial up to 3 to get Brazen Borrower in play, then I'm wasting the Petty Theft. So, and then in addition to that, with Vendilion Clique, same problem. Like, I don't want my vial to go to 3 just for Vendilion Clique, and I'm choked on mana in order to hardcast this Vendilion Clique. So and same situation with the mulligans. If I mulligan, there's so many hands where I've got like I would normally keep a lot of 1-land vial hands, but if it's a 1-land vial hand now with a bunch of 3-drops, now this is really unplayable, because I have to, the fastest I can get one of these creatures out is on turn 4 when my vial ticks up to 3. If I have 2-land hands with vial and a bunch of these, it's still a problem if I don't draw that next land. Then I would be in situations where, again, I mulligan and I get like 2-land, 1 vial, and these 3-drops, and I would dump the vial. Like, if I have to put something to the bottom of my deck, it would be the Aether Vial, because if I don't want to take away any of my threats, because I've already mulliganed down to 6. I don't want to get rid of the land, because then I have a 1-land Aether Vial hand. That's not good either. So the best thing is actually to dump the vial and then play my 2-drops with 2 mana and then hope that I draw a 3rd land. Because the thing is, if I've mulliganed and I keep that, if I keep 2 lands in a vial and I throw away one of my threats, then I'm still praying for another land over the next few turns, which is not something I really want to do, because I'm already down on threats. So I was tucking the Aether Vial away in a lot of situations after I've mulliganed, because I can cast most of my stuff off of 2 lands, and then I can be happy to see a 3rd land to cast my Brazen Borrowers and my Vendilion Cliques, or even my Force Negations. So there has been room since Modern Horizons printing, and especially after Throne of Eldraine, to dump the vial. There actually has been some reason. So I decided to try this particular list. I wanted to, and I did it. I chose blue-red because, well, first off, I think Lightning Bolt is very underrated in the Merfolk archetype. I think blue-red is just very highly unexplored within the Merfolk community. And there have been, published lists here and there going 5-0 with Merfolk, and I just don't think enough people are playtesting with Bolt. I've also gone 5-0 with Lightning Bolt before, and it's a great card in Merfolk. You can shove it to your opponent's face, kills a lot of creatures, you reduce the amount of life that you use normally we use Dismember. Lightning Bolt kills a lot of creatures as well. But I really wanted to leverage the Royal Scions, because I think this was a card that didn't get a lot of spotlight because Oko was stealing the show. But also, I don't think the Royal Scions is for every deck. I think, how on earth do you utilize this +2/+0 gain first strike and trample ability? Do you know what? A deck that's playing with a lot of weak toughness, a lot of 2/1 creatures, might really want this ability. I think this is the perfect card for Merfolk. I think Merfolk exactly wants this card. If there is a 3-power creature in front of my Brineborn Cutthroat, or I should say, and also 4 toughness, just give it +2/+0 first strike, attack right into it. If I don't have Island Walk, then I just attack into them for 4 damage, or even in the air for 5. This is exactly, and you can't block me with your stupid Lingering Soul tokens or your Narcomoebas and that other garbage. Or any tokens in general. Or even a Colonnade. You can't even block me with Colonnade. Royal Scions is going to do great there. So that was the point of the Royal Scions. Also, you can draw cards, discard cards, and the ultimate is pretty good. You put a bunch of cards in your hand. You can shoot your shoot any target. Was it any target? Any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. So Royal Scion's, I think, an underrated planeswalker right now. That's basically why I wanted to go blue-red, and I got to take advantage of Fiery Islet. If I have a deck full of 24 lands, I want to play with at least some cycle lands. So okay, we lose Aether Vial. Now, one of the advantages to Aether Vial is that we got to play at flash speed. Well, fortunately, Merfolk has picked up a lot of new pieces over the last few years that makes this deck play at flash speed anyway. We've got Merfolk Trickster. We just got Brineborn Cutthroat. We got Brazen Borrower, and we also have always used once in a while Vendilion Click. So the deck mostly can play at flash speed anyway. The only things that don't play at flash speed are basically the Silvergill Adept, the Lord of Atlantis, and the Master of the Pearl Trident. And these things can be played on turn 4. These things can be played much later in. I want to play these actually. Ideally, early on in the game, so for the first few turns, on turns 2 and 3, I'll play my sorcery speed stuff, and then I'm all full stop, especially when I have 4 mana for my Cryptic Command. I'm just playing things at instant speed as much as possible, bouncing things. So for the early turns of the game, I don't mind playing at sorcery speed, and on the later turns of the game, I want to play at instant speed. But if I need to, I can play at instant speed very early on to play around my opponent's instance, and then later on in the game, play Lords to attack for a lot of damage. Seeing as these are still the more valuable creatures in the deck. And I'm telling you know what? I've scrapped Master of Waves, I've scrapped Silvergill Adept from this deck before, and now I've scrapped Aether Vial. It looks like the Lords are the core of the deck. Like, this is the soul of Merfolk. Giving things unblockability and making all your other creatures +1/+1, this appears to be the soul of the Merfolk deck, and everything else really isn't actually that core to the strategy. They're just good in certain situations, but this seems to be the most important thing. And also, I definitely needed Brineborn Cutthroat in this deck so that Silvergill Adept wouldn't be clunky. In my most recent mono blue versions, I was playing with 8 Lords, Silvergill Adept, Merfolk Trickster, and with Aether Vial, that's fine, but Silvergill Adept, in order to cast it for 2 mana, you have to reveal a Merfolk card. I think 16 Merfolk is too low, so I added Brineborn Cutthroat, but it works perfectly with the deck. It has Flash, can be cast off of Mutavault if necessary, but has Flash, can be played at end of turn to help enable that Flash speed strategy. Now, I don't have any Cavern of Souls in this deck, because another reason you want to play Aether Vial is to make your creatures uncounterable. I decided to not care about that aspect. I don't know if there was going to be enough decks playing really good counter spells. So I decided to screw it. We don't need to play with counter spells. I'm gonna run into the counter spells for now. But if I needed to, I could play with Cavern of Souls in this list. Or a mono blue list. But I didn't want to play with Cavern of Souls. Maybe I could squeeze in one, I'm not sure. Because I want to leverage Cryptic Command. Cryptic Command is a card so good in Merfolk. It's a Swiss Army knife. It literally does everything. Ensnaring Bridge is like one of the most painful cards to play against. This thing can just bounce it to their hand. But in addition to being a bounce spell, it's a counter spell. And you draw cards. And you don't even need Spreading Seas. You can just tap your opponent's creatures down and then attack for the win. And let me tell you, with the evasion that we get from Vendilion Click and Brazen Borrower, and enough tricky things with Merfolk Trickster and removing our opponent's creatures with Lightning Bolt and evasion with Fairy Conclave, I don't even know if we need Spreading Seas in this deck. So I was pretty confident, just basically dumping the Spreading Seas, playing with Cryptic Command instead. If I need unblockable creatures, I can tap my opponent's creatures down and then attack for the win. But if that was not good, it's going to be good enough. And there's still going to be a decent chunk of decks out there that's going to play Run Islands that we're going to have free Island Walk and run right through them. What else do I want to say about this list? Blue-red, sideboard for Damping Sphere. I thought for 20 minutes, do I want Damping Sphere or do I want Blood Moon? I decided on the Damping Sphere because Blood Moon might be too slow against Tron. And Damping Sphere normally is not that... it can be dealt with against both Tron and Amulet, but I think we have enough of an aggressive deck that we can close out the game before they have an answer to Damping Sphere. I have a lot of Graveyard hate because Dredge is going to be one of the best decks after Theros Beyond Death. They got that stupid Ox that for 2 red in the graveyard, and I think I have to exile 7 or 8 cards, but they get to discard their hand and draw 3 cards. I mean, that's insane. That's just insane. So I actually want to squeeze a 4th Grafdigger's Cage. I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe I dump a Spreading Seas. Maybe I dump a Force Negation. Don't really want to dump the Damping Spheres because I expect Amulet and Tron to be around in pretty big numbers, so I want the Damping Spheres. So that's that. Now, I can quickly show you what this deck looks like maybe mono blue. So this is what it could look like in mono blue. I would leverage Castle Vantress, and let me tell you, you have a lot of mana up pretty often, and you know what, if I could Castle Vantress and Scry 2 all the time, and just put good stuff on top of my deck, I think that's more valuable than things like Fiery Islet or Waterlogged Grove, where you crack the land and draw a random card. I think that's much more powerful. We are playing at flash speed so much that we are definitely, there's so many times where I'm passing with 5, 6, 7 mana up, and Castle Vantress would be great. And instead of Lightning Bolt, we get Dismember, which is going to be good in some situations. So that the trade-off is Dismember is going to be good against Urza decks because you can kill Urza. It's going to be better against Yawgmoth decks because you can kill Yawgmoth. It's going to be better against Eldrazi Tron because you can kill Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher. But Lightning Bolt is just going to be far better against Burn, Mono Red Prowess, where your life total is very important and you can kill the creatures anyway. So I don't know what the verdict is on which one is going to be better, but I certainly had some good... I'd be very open to playing a list like this, and instead of the 2 Royal Silence, I put 2 Vendilion Clicks in here. So here's a really cool thing, though, about going vial-less. All right, are you listening? Because this is really cool and exciting. It completely opens new design space for this deck. It completely opens design space we've never seen before in Merfolk. We can start playing cards that we never thought we would ever play. Something like here's the thing, when you play Merfolk with Aether Vial, you're not getting to that 3rd land very often. You're just not. Not consistently. You can and in Modern right now, you have to curve out. You have to. If you don't curve out, your opponent will, and they'll beat you. So you're not getting to that 3rd land consistently. So now we can play. If we're playing with 24 lands, we will, and we can play with cards we never thought we would ever play with before. So it's possible we can play Blast Zone, which only gets activated at 4 mana, but we can start putting charge count. Well, we don't need to put charge counters on it. No, ideally it's going to be used to blow up things on 1. But in theory, we could tick it up to 3 or 4 if necessary, and then blow it up. I'm just not saying we have to play with these things. We're open to playing with these things. Field of Ruin, again, this is the thing. You have to get to 3 mana. It's just an awkward card in Merfolk because you're going to be sitting at 2 mana a lot, and then let's say you get this by turn. Let's say you get this by turn 4 or 5. It might be too late against Tron that already has an Ugin in play. Hypnotic Sprite, the Mesmeric Glare for 3 mana, counter target spell with converted mana cost 3 or less. That would be beautiful against a lot of decks in Modern. Like most of the cards cost 3 mana or less. So that'd be a fantastic counter spell, but the problem is getting to that Mesmeric Glare, 3 manas, it's pretty rough. Nimble Obstructionist, 3/1 flyer with flash, and as cycling. When it counter target when you cycle Nimble Obstructionist, counter target activated or triggered ability you don't control. So if our opponent tries to tick up a Blast Zone on 2 and blow everything up, nope, you can't do that. Oblivion Stone, no. Ugin, no. No, just all no with Nimble Obstructionist. Archmage's Charm. Archmage's Charm is a card that a lot of people got excited about seeing in Modern Horizons, but 3, blue, you might as well be playing Cryptic Command. It's a very tough sell to actually play this card, even though it's really good. 3 mana, counter target spell, that's not bad. Target player draws 2 cards. Yeah, that could be good in a lot of situations, but gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. This sort of deck might really want that, especially if you're up against Burn or Mono Red Prowess, where you want to steal their Swift Spear or their Soulscar Mage and take advantage of that. So Archmage's Charm, I think, is very, very good. I think it's very, very good in that regard. I think it's very, very strong. And you can steal your opponent's Aether Vial, you can steal your opponent's Champion of the Parish. So this card has potential, but the old builds of Merfolk with Aether Vial could not support these cards reliably. Now it can. So anything at 3 mana, or even 4 mana. In theory, we could play Jace the Mind Sculptor now. Not that I think it's very good in this deck, because I think it's too hard to protect a Jace the Mind Sculptor. But those options are on the table now, whereas when we were playing with Aether Vial, they were not. So, anyway, yeah, this is very interesting. I finally, now that like what's it called? Theros Beyond Death is out. I decided, under all the pressure of criticism that people are saying about Ether, like, how would you feel about Aether Vial getting banned? Well, I'll show you how it's done. I already got a 5-0. I've proposed the list to the Merfolk community. Another Merfolk community member, Stoneheart, went 5-0 in queues, which is still an impressive result, going undefeated. It's a very strong deck. So with that, let me show you how you play without Vial in a league. So we're going to look at the replay of my 5-0. Because it's spectacular, that's why. We don't usually do replays on this channel, but we're going to make an exception in this case just to show you how strong this list is even without Vial. We see this hand, 4 mana spells, 3 mana spells, but you know what? It's not bad at all. And I believe, I don't know who won the die roll. I think I won the die roll. No, sorry, I did not win the die roll. So my opponent won the die roll. Anyway, the hand is very, very good. We've got a 2-drop into a 3-drop into a 4-drop. I'm keeping it. And you know what? We have nothing to do with the Fairy Conclave anyway, so on turn 1. And it's basically going to be like our turn 1 play a lot of the time. And, you know, if we had Aether Vial, this would be our turn 1 play, and we'd have nothing to do on turn 1 anyway. So our opponent starts off with Serum Visions. We don't know anything about our opponent. They could be on Blue Moon. Could be on Storm. Could be anything, but anyway, they play land. They pass. We're gonna play the Spire Bluff Canal. Keep drawing Lightning Bolts, just fine. Well, I guess not. We're up against some sort of what could be a control deck, so Lightning Bolts could be dead. But our opponent plays Peak. Now I'm not sure what exactly this is, because I don't know how many decks play Peak these days, especially if they're a control deck. But my opponent keeps rattling off cantrips, so. And then interestingly, they play the Goblin Electromancer into my Lightning Bolt, so we just bolt the thing. Which is convenient. Normally that would be Dismember, and I would have to pay 4 life, and I'd be at 16. I would not be a happy camper. So now we're drawing creatures. But now we know we're up against Storm. We are 1000% up against Storm. That's what we're up against. So at end of turn, I believe I play Brazen Borrower because this is the most mana efficient thing to do. And there is definitely the possibility that my opponent can play Gifts Ungiven here. But if they do, they always get... we have a counterspell to follow that up with. Like, I can't just pass the turn back and forth a million times anyway. They could Gifts Ungiven at my upkeep, and then, you know, I can't do anything anyway. And they basically know my hand. So I have to put some pressure on the battlefield. But they usually Gifts Ungiven for 2 rituals, a Manamorphose, and... Past in Flames. We have a counterspell for the Past in Flames, so if they have Gifts Ungiven, not the end of the world. If they don't, then I'm just putting pressure on the battlefield and getting the game going. They have the Gifts Ungiven. And, of course, they get Manamorphose, 2 rituals, and Past in Flames. I put the Past in Flames and the Manamorphose in the graveyard, give them all the rituals, and I just hope they have nothing to follow that up with. We get the Royal Scions, but tapping out against this deck is not going to be smart. So we're going to attack, play our land, pass, and here we are. We don't need Aether Vial. One of these things would be Aether Vial, and then we wouldn't have Cryptic Command up. We can just play at flash speed. If our opponent goes for that Past in Flames, we're going to counter it. If our opponent doesn't go for the Past in Flames, we're going to keep adding to our position on the board. They put a card on the top and bottom, so they put something useful on the top, and then they go for Brawl. Chief of Compliance, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Maybe they just drew that card. So I believe I play another Brazen Borrower and Lightning Bolt, the Brawl. That does leave these two pretty weak to Grape Shot, because it doesn't take very much to just play a few spells, Grape Shot them off the battlefield, but the alternative is to play Merfolk Trickster. And it's okay, but like Trickster's gonna die anyway too. Trickster's cheaper to cast in the future. Anyway, so this is going to be for 6 damage, and I still have to keep up my mana for Cryptic Command, so that's what I do. But if we need to, like, we can always fetch this thing away. Well, I mean, we have power on the battlefield. There's an extra 4 power here if we need it. So another Brawl enters the battlefield, and I'm like, okay, so you have a bunch of rituals in hand. If you don't have a land drop here, and by the way, I'm relatively confident that they top deck this, the way this game has played out. Because, especially on the earlier turns, I would think that they should play their Brawl first before they played their cantrips. But if they play the cantrips first, and then play the Brawl, then I don't think they have any more mana. Anyway, I just think they top deck this. So, if they play a ritual here, which they will, I think this is where I can Cryptic Command it, and they have nothing else to do, and I just have to sweat it out and make sure and hope that they don't have, what's it called? Remand. They have Remand, they have Remand. I didn't know how to play around this Remand the best. I just figured I have to hope that they don't have Remand and I would win the game. Otherwise, I did have the option to Merfolk Trickster the Brawl in response to the Pyretic Ritual, and then they would have a harder time comboing off. That I think they still would. They just wouldn't get the discount on Brawl. Anyway, this Cryptic Command resolves. And I also... Oh, that was also an interesting point. I went for Cryptic Command, bounce... Sorry, tap your team, counter the spell to make sure that I could attack with the Mutavault and Fairy Conclave for the win, because I don't have enough damage as it is, and Brawl can block the Mutavault. And if I went, say, tap, bounce the Brawl instead of tap, there might be a world... How can they kill this thing? I guess they can't. I guess it doesn't matter. I was thinking if they Echoing Truth their Brawl to hand, they counter the Cryptic Command, but that doesn't matter because, well, they can just Echoing Truth something else. So tapping or bouncing might have been the same thing. But either way, I have to get rid of this Brawl. And I draw Merfolk Trickster, and I think for like, I don't know, 10 minutes about whether I should somehow play around an Echoing Truth, but I decide not to, just go for the win. And it works. Alright, so that was game 1. Let's move on to game 2. So the way I sideboarded, I did bring in some Damping Spheres. I don't... Like, I'm sure it's a good card, but I don't know how good it is. I've just leveraged all my other interaction. I brought in all the Force and Negations. I brought in 2 Grafdigger's Cages and 1 Relic. That's a bit weird. And I sided out like 2 Silvergill Adepts, 2 Spreading Seizes, all the Lightning Bolts. Some people want to keep the Lightning Bolt in for Goblin Electromancer and Brawl. I really don't like it that much because they have so many of these creatures right now, so if you kill one, then they're just going to bring out another one. So you can't stop the mana creatures. I just prefer to have cards that just stop the key combo pieces of actually going off. Like in that game, I killed 2 of those. I killed 2 of them, didn't I? Like a Goblin Electromancer and a Brawl, and they still kept playing these stupid storm creatures. So I don't like. I honestly don't really like fighting over it. If they played with only 4 copies, that would be fine. I don't mind attacking them, but if they're playing with 6 or more, I would prefer to just try to fight a storm battle with that thing already on the board and then try to win from there. Silvergill Adept I really hated in this matchup. Really weak to Grape Shot. Does draw a card, but is very clunky. You have to play at sorcery speed. Not in love with Silvergill Adept against combo decks these days. What's the Oh, and I took out the Royal Scions because you have to tap out for this, and doesn't look very important for Storm matchup. Alright, so we're on the draw, and hand is fine. It's a hand. Opponent goes Serum Visions. Where is the chat? Don't have the chat to know exactly what they're doing with their Serum Visions. So, opponent goes Serum Visions again. They pass the turn. We're just going... I believe I play something here. Or do I? Maybe not. Maybe I play Merfolk Trickster because I can. If I didn't have this Merfolk Trickster, I would definitely slam one of these creatures on my main phase, because I think we have some room to play something on turn 2. We just don't have any room to do something after that. Potentially in this game, playing something on turn 2 was fine. Our opponent goes for pieces of the puzzle. I believe I counterspell this. And the reason I counterspell it because post-board Storm can get really grindy, and this is one of the card advantage spells. They're going to put 2 good cards in their hand, they're going to put a bunch of good stuff in the graveyard, so that's going to be a problem for us. And then suddenly this one card that I could have dealt with right now could turn into a big pile of nonsense. We could turn into more pieces of the puzzle. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put up to 2 instant and or sorcery cards from among them into your hand, the rest in the graveyard. They can like put 2 pieces of the puzzle in their hand and Past in Flames and all this other crap in the graveyard. So I think it's a dangerous card. It's worth counterspelling. 3 mana, potentially worth 5 cards. And I got rid of one of my lords because I think it's one of the less important cards at the moment. The game is not won by lords. It's won with like flash creatures. And if I remember correctly, I'm going to attack for 2, and then on my main phase, I'm going to play this Vendilion Clique because I can't counterspell anything. And if I don't do this now, my opponent could go like Ritual, Gifts Ungiven, or something, or even counterspell my Vendilion Clique on my on their. Oh no, I don't do it now, or do I do it at their upkeep? Okay, I do it at their draw step, but it was reasonable to do it on my turn as well. Make no mistake, they do play with some counter magic. So, Desperate Ritual, Grape Shot, Lightning Bolt, Mana, Morphos, Past in Flames. So, the rituals are almost always like air, so I can ignore like Desperate Ritual. Grape Shot is really annoying because it can blow up my board. Lightning Bolt is also annoying because it can just kill a creature. Metamorphose is sort of the same as Desperate Ritual, but it draws a card. I take Past in Flames because this is just regenerates everything. It's more card advantage because they can flashback Serum Visions. They need Past in Flames to combo off. This stuff just dirtles around. So I'm not happy about leaving them with the Grape Shot, and it was one of the candidates to like take, but like this is just way, way, way too strong. They can easily just go Lightning Bolt something, Past in Flames, Lightning Bolt something again, or they'll just combo off on me. They'll have access to a lot of mana between Metamorphose and Desperate Ritual. Eventually. So if and they have Lightning Bolt anyway, so they can kill my creatures, or at least one of them. So Past in Flames goes bye-bye. My opponent is getting desperate. Not sure what they intend to do with this. They go peer through the depths, and I think they spliced into Arcane a Desperate Ritual. That's why they have 3 mana now. And they Lightning Bolt me, because they intend on Grape Shotting my board away to buy themselves some time. And it's going to buy them a lot of time. So I now play my Lord because I need... I assume my opponent's hand is empty. And I just need my opponent to just whiff one turn. Because like all the cards that I knew are gone. Like the Grape Shot, the Metamorphose, the Past in Flames, the Lightning Bolt, they're all gone. So here's my turn to play Lord of Atlantis, play the Brineborn Cutthroat, and attack, and then hold up Cryptic Command for future turns when my opponent finally finds a way to win the game. They go Serum Visions, play more stuff. Metamorphose. And they Lightning Bolt this thing. Can't help but feel my opponent is playing like particularly greedy. Like they have about 16 life. They're not even close to dying, and they're being really aggressive with their spells. So I draw a Brineborn Cutthroat, and I'm in the same situation. I want to get a clock on the board. Like, attacking for 2 every turn is not going to do it, even with Cryptic Command in hand. So the idea is get a clock on the board, like a good clock on the board. After this, I can kill my opponent in 3 more turns. Now the Cryptic Command is going to be valuable. So my opponent peeks, sees that we have Cryptic Command, plays a land. That's what we wanted. Now our opponent has nothing in hand, and the moment they go for something, we Cryptic Command it. And we have 2 Cryptic Commands now, so they're really in trouble. They just keep drawing lands past the turn. And now at our turn, they Lightning Bolt, and if I let it die, Rineborn Cutthroat is going to be a 4-turn clock, and I think that's more dangerous. I think that's less dangerous to our opponent than just trying to kill them by next turn. So I opt to Cryptic Command here. And luckily we draw Force of Negation. That's very lucky, because now our opponent just cannot win. It's impossible. They opt. I decide to Force Negate it, because I believe I knew their hand were 2 Desperate Rituals. So if I just Force Negate this, opt, the game is over. And then that's it. So I win against Storm. Storm is a deck, I don't know, it's coming back for some reason. I'm not sure exactly what the good matchups are. Maybe it's because of the rise of well, I don't know. It's a new metagame now, so I can't tell exactly for sure where Storm's place is going to be in the metagame. But certainly if Tron comes back, Storm is going to be a good deck. And also it's always been good against control. So that was round 1. Let's move on to round 2. So we won the die roll. I have a fine hand here. Just a bunch of lands, some creatures, interaction, so we're going to keep it. I start off with Fairy Conclave, pass. I didn't mention this in the last game, but you see how valuable it is to be so mana efficient, or have the mana available all the time in that Storm matchup. Like without Vial, like the deck is a lot less clunky. It's funny, like Aether Vial is supposed to give you mana. It's supposed to make the deck less clunky, but not really. Like it's mana on turns 3+, but on the early turns of the game it's not. And on top of that, it's not mana that you can spend on other spells. And now it's also not mana you can spend on any creatures that are on an adventure. And Merfolk is a deck that utilizes things more than creatures. So we're up against Dredge, which is going to be one of the decks to beat. Hands down going to be one of the decks to beat. Well, whenever Wizards is fiddling around with the graveyard, the Dredge players are just drooling in excitement. I draw a Spire Bluff Canal, so that's definitely a good candidate card to play. And, well, position sucks, because this hand is not that good against Dredge. It's nice that we're on the play, but hand's not good. We have Silvergill Adept here. I don't think that's that good in this matchup. Lightning Bolt is, I mean, you know, removal is pretty useless. Draw another Lightning Bolt, that's not good. So I'm like thinking, well, this is not going well. Our opponent finds pretty good Shriekhorn targets, Creeping Chill into Prized Amalgam. No Dredgers, so that's some good news. But they Shriekhorn again, they find a Life from the Loam. So here they go. Another Creeping Chill with a Blood Gas, so I'm really doomed. The game has barely started and I'm basically dead. So this Blood Gas is going to come into play, find the two Prized Amalgams. There's 2 Prized Amalgams in there. They discarded one with Insolent Neonate. And they play another Shriekhorn. I'm just stone dead. I'm at 14, my opponent's at 21. I haven't even attacked yet. Can't remember, do I just scoop here? I find like another Lightning Bolt. And I was thinking like, that's like 9 damage. But unfortunately, I'm at 14 life, so my opponent can just attack me for like too quickly. I can't remember what I'm doing here. I think I'm going to like bolt the Prized Amalgams or something like that. To save time. What do they have in the graveyard? Could I have made some attempt to try to win this game with the Lightning Bolts? If I played Lord of Atlantis, attack for 3, they go to 18, then I can attack for... No, I'm just not winning the race. You attack for 8, and there's just no way I can attack again next turn. Oh no, but I can bolt at end of turn. And then play land, double bolt. What if I played another Lord? That'd be 7. Maybe I had some outs that I didn't take advantage of. Anyway, I get hit for 8, and I'm like, okay, that's it. I can't win this game. That's Dredge. That was round 1. Let's move on to round 2. I think my sideboarding was pretty straightforward. I removed all the Lightning Bolts and 1 Silvergill Adept. Oh, and the Vendilion Clicks for the Force. Oh, and the Royal Scions for Force of Negation, which is very good in this matchup. Force Negation is very good, because if you can counter a Conflagrate or a Shriekhorn, especially when they're mulliganing, like a Dredge mulligans very aggressively. If they mulligan to 5 or 4 and they might depend on a Shriekhorn, you Force Negate it, and they're like, they don't do anything for 7 more turns. That's your window of opportunity to beat them. So Force Negation, really strong in this matchup. Also can help protect your Grafdigger's Cage from their Nature's Claims and garbage like that. Not in love with Silvergill Adept because it's just a 1 toughness creature, really weak. Took out Click, which may or may not be correct. Like, it gets stone blocked by Insolent Neonate. Now, Royal Scions, I decided to take out. I think that's still the right decision, but I'm not sure, because I could, in theory, give my creatures +2/+0 and attack into, like, that. Sorry, Narcomoeba. I can attack into Narcomoeba. Yeah, that's the thing that can block my Vendilion Click. So, Narcomoeba can block my Vendilion Click, but not if it has Trample and First Strike. Well, they can block, but it's not gonna work out for them. But anyway, I opt to take it out for the Graveyard package and counterspells. And I brought in 2 relics, 3 Grafdigger's Cage, 4 Force of Negations. So I look at my hand. It's just creatures, and you know what? That's just not going to do it against Dredge in 2020. In fact, that's not going to do it against Dredge ever. You need to have like some very real interaction. So I mulligan, and I got the interaction. All right, Force Negation, I'm in. You know what? Even if I have to counter a not Conflagrate, if I have to counter a Cathartic Reunion, and even if they put a bunch of Dredges in the graveyard, that's going to slow them down by a lot. So I'm in for this sort of hand. So I keep. Can't remember what I put. I think I might put the Cryptic Command on the bottom, just because I'm so far away from casting it, and I need the creatures to close out the game. So yeah, I did get rid of the Cryptic Command. Alright, probably play Polluted Delta here to find a Steam Vents. Now, our opponent mulliganed down to what appeared to be 3? So they went far, which is what Dredge does. And they can do it because, you know, when they get... they can go very far because they can be super ultra explosive. So they go the Shriekhorn, and like I said, I'm going to counter this damn thing. I get rid of the Brazen Borrower. This is actually going to be a rare situation where I'm happy to see Silvergill Adept in this matchup. That 1 toughness just sucks. But anyway, we're going to at least sort of come back from our card deficit. But I've won so many games against Dredge where they mulligan aggressively. They've got like 1 tool to like go off. I counter it, and the game's basically over. So I play Silvergill Adept, showing Lord of Atlantis. I can't remember what the reasoning was to play this over the Mutavault. Like, I'm pretty certain that I'm not attacking with Mutavault next turn for Lord of Atlantis. Maybe if I draw Fairy Conclave, that's something I would prefer to play. But you gotta be sensitive with the blue mana. Like, I guess I'm just more cautious with playing Mutavault. So our opponent Dark Blasts my Silvergill Adept. That sucks. Because not only is that going to Dredge, that's also going to make it very difficult for me to, you know, keep stuff on the board. They can Dark Blast my Lord of Atlantis at their upkeep, then Dredge it back to their hand and Dark Blast again, if they have 2 black mana. So let's go, 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 go. We need threats. And we do have threats. Mutavault plus Lord of Atlantis, that's not nothing, that's something. Brazen Borrower, which is pretty terrible right now because there's Dark Blast in the graveyard, so I have to be very careful when I play this Brazen Borrower. It's got to be at a time that Dark Blast is in the graveyard or my opponent doesn't have black mana up. But aside from that, Brazen Borrower is not going to do very much. So they start dredging. They have a Life from the Loam and a Prized Amalgam now in the graveyard. So they've got the Dark Blast in hand, but on the other hand, it doesn't look like they have a second black mana source, so they can't take advantage of Dark Blasting Lord of Atlantis, dredging it, back to their hand and then killing it again. They need to get more black mana on the battlefield. Brineborn Cutthroat is actually not bad. And I can play this. It's got 1 toughness, but I can play it because the Lord of Atlantis is on the battlefield. So I believe I activate Mutavault. Get in for 5. And Brineborn is going to help contribute to the damage. Now my opponent gets life from the loam. They'll loam some stuff. They have a land, but anyway, we're going to play Brineborn Cutthroat. At end of turn. We have 8 power on the board. I'm pretty happy about that. And I'm sort of happy about that island, because now that gives me the option to play the Brazen Borrower after I attack with everything. So I'm going to activate Mutavault, attack for 8. And also help trigger the Brineborn Cutthroat. So I play my island and pass. They get another Blood Crypt, so they're accumulating the black mana, but it looks like it's going to be too late. Creeping Chill, that complicates things. So they find a Creeping Chill off of their Dredge, putting their life total at 6, which is now a world's difference. And they have this Ox of Agonis in the graveyard. So they play their Ox. So I had a weird decision here. Normally, when your opponent plays Bedlam Reveler, you bounce it to their hand so that they can discard it. But I don't know if that's something I wanted to do here. Because if I bounce it to their hand and they discard it, then they can escape it again. Potentially. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. And certainly they could exile 8 other cards. Well, anyway, I let it just resolve. And then I saw the atrocity that's happening to me in the graveyard. So Creeping Chill again, puts them to 8. And they're getting more creatures on the battlefield, which is getting sickening. And remember, they've got Dark Blast. So, like, they can just Dark Blast for 1, and I'm only attacking for, like, not that much. I'm attacking for, what, 3... This is 8 damage, so even if I clear the blockers, they just Dark Blast something, they take 7. So I believe I Brazen Borrower the Ox back to hand. Which now actually gives me lethal because Brineborn Cutthroat triggers. And they decide to Dark Blast Lord of Atlantis. Followed up by another Dark Blast on Lord of Atlantis. Oh, la-di-da. So they could play that Ox again next turn, but I was banking that I could potentially win on my next turn. Or in the next few turns. I do draw Master of the Pearl Trident, which is very good. It's, is it lethal? No, it's not. So my opponent could just take this damage if they wanted to. They opt to block. Alright, do you have a land to replay this Ox? What do you want to do? My opponent dredges instead. And then plays a Stinkweed Imp. Now I didn't really understand this line because they're dead on board now. Unless they have one more Dark Blast, but 2 of the Dark Blasts are in the graveyard. So anyway, I just activate and attack with everything. But maybe this was the best thing that they could do. They they dredged Stinkweed Imp, and then there was just nothing else they could do. And I won. Hooray! So that was round 2. Let's move on to round 3. Sorry, that was game 2. Let's move on to game 3. So I don't remember what I did with this hand. Cryptic Command has some value in this matchup because that's the only way you can, like, if they have a bunch of creatures on the battlefield, that's the best way to just clear the way to win. You just Cryptic Command all their creatures, tap them down, and then you start attacking back. But if I'm not mistaken, I like mulligan this because Cryptic Command is only going to be active by turn 4. I'm on the draw. That's not worth it. If I remember correctly, I don't change any of my sideboarding. It's all the same. It's the same as before. Nothing's changed. So anyway, I think I mulligan this for more aggressive hand. I've got like like in my opinion, Forced Negation is premium. Grafdigger's Cage is premium. Relic is okay. I might as well take a mulligan to go look for that sort of hand. And I find it, so it's a one-lander, but I'm pretty happy with it. And especially now that I'm playing with 24 lands, keeping one-landers on the draw is going to be way more playable than it ever has been. So I tuck away the Cryptic Command because it's just the most expensive card, and we have like a really good clock in this hand. You know, Merfolk Tricksters with Lord of Atlantis. We can do something serious with this. Our opponent keeps 7 cards though this game. So let's see if anything changes. So they go for Shriekhorn, and again, I just force negate this. You know, I've played enough games against Dredge to know that this just screws them so badly. And they're like, you know, sort of a combo deck. So like if they have a hand with only that one Shriekhorn and they depend on it, then they just have to keep it, and then that's that. So I draw Grafdigger's Cage, beautiful. All right. So you didn't even get your game going, and now you're not gonna be allowed to get your game going on for the rest of the game. So they need to find an answer to Grafdigger's Cage. I find Polluted Delta immediately, so everything's going according to plan. And I'm just going to get ready to play Merfolk Tricksters at end of turn. Because if my opponent starts hard casting Stinkweed Imps, I'm going to have to like tap those things down. So my opponent finds Blast Zone. That's pretty scary. Because once they can get to 4 mana, they can blow up the Grafdigger's Cage. And they do play a Stinkweed Imp, so we're going to start the ritual of playing the Merfolk Trickster. I don't remember what I do here. It might be play Lord of Atlantis, attack for 3, pass, but also just might be attack for 2. Okay, so I take this line. And I just wait for a better spot with my Merfolk Trickster. Our opponent's on defense. So they need 4 lands to crack the Blast Zone. They only have 2. That's too bad. Oh, I think I remember what I was going to do. I was going to attack with both these things, and if they block, that's when I Trickster it, and it just dies. And I don't care if it's in the graveyard, because you can't really dredge. And then I can just attack after that. That might have been my plan. Now I don't remember what my... Now that I draw Lord of Atlantis, now I don't remember what my plan is going to be. Now the new plan, I think, is Trickster this at end of turn, play a Lord, just attack for a ton, and then just attack blindly the following turn. But even if they find a land here, it's like sort of late. Oh, I also had a thing of... I had to play around this Blast Zone going to 2. So I want to be careful about how many things I commit to the table, because my opponent could always just put Blast Zone on 2, ignore the Grafdigger's Cage for now, and then if they draw a land, just blow up my entire board. So anyway, now I go like end of turn, Trickster, and we're going to just get in for a good healthy chunk of damage. And now that I draw Brineborn Cutthroat, now I don't want to play the Lord of Atlantis. It would be for 4, 8, 11 damage, but then again, my opponent ticks Blast Zone up to 2, draws a land, blows up the board. Now all I have is a Mutavault and a Brineborn Cutthroat facing a Stinkweed Imp. I didn't like my chances, so now instead I'm going to hedge my risk by just attacking with all these creatures, and then I'll play If my opponent doesn't tick up Blast Zone to 2, I can play Brineborn Cutthroat at end of turn. So anyway, that's sort of what happens. My opponent's just trying to save some life with this Dark Blast. They play another Shriekhorn, sure. They're going to have to look for, like, I can't remember, Creeping Chill or something. And now my creatures are super safe from Blast Zone because they tap the Blast Zone, so I play Brineborn Cutthroat at end of turn. Ta-da! And I couldn't remember exactly what I'm playing around, because I have lethal as it is right now. If they just block the largest creature, that's 8 damage. So I believe I just play Lord of Atlantis, and if they want to Abrupt Decay anything, it's still... Or it's very close to lethal. So, like, if I play this Lord of Atlantis, and they say Abrupt Decay this Lord of Atlantis, they can block a 3/3, still take 6 damage, and it's basically over because Mutavault should finish them off the next turn. It is, but they don't have any removal. They don't find anything off of their Shriekhorn. And I believe that's it. That's game. That's game. Merfolk beats Dredge. And it's going to lean... Like, these games are going to lean hard on Grafdigger's Cage. You're going to need them. I'm telling the Merfolk community, please play with harder removal than just Relic of Progenitus. Relic is fine, but it's like not going to do it enough of the time against Dredge. Like, these Shriekhorns beat Relic of Progenitus really hard. So, and I'm telling you, respect Dredge. If you know your local game store doesn't have Dredge, fine. Online or at a big event, a Star City Open or GP, please respect Dredge. This is always respect Dredge, especially right now. I don't think Dredge has lost enough after the banning of Faithless Looting that you can ignore it. It's always that it's always there. Now it's going to be there in a big way because of that new Ox card. So I don't know how much the lands contributed, like, over no Aether Vial, but I do like that I could still play completely at flash speed, and also, you know, these blasts. So another incidental interesting thing is that, I mean, we didn't see the artifact or the artifact destruction in this game. But playing with less Spreading Seas and playing with less Aether Vial leaves you less exposed to that removal, that artifact and enchantment removal that sometimes people bring in against Merfolk. And, you know, Engineered Explosives on 1 to beat, like, or like Blast Zone on 1 to beat a Grafdigger's Cage. It's not an issue when you are playing with, it's not as much of an issue if you're not playing with Aether Vial because they don't hit your Aether Vial as well. So anyway, that was round 2. Let's move on to round 3. So we won the die roll, and whatever. I have a hand of lands and stuff. Lands and spells. And we know we're going to curve out into that Royal Scions. Or will we? Our opponent goes like, turn 1, Overgrown Tomb, Thoth seizes the Royal Scions out of our hand. And now we got nothing. But at least we have, like, this Mutavault, so, I mean, it's not like our hand is completely empty. And we rip Silver Gilladept off the top of our deck, so that was a pleasant surprise. Because this Lightning Bolt's probably not going to be very good in this matchup. And actually, I don't really have any good reason to play this Mutavault on this turn. And it was probably a mistake, because now I can't go Master the Pearl Trident into Lightning Bolt next turn. If my opponent had 2 lands in play and could threaten Liliana the Veil next turn, then, like, playing Mutavault makes more sense. But this early on makes less sense. But maybe it won't matter because I have a Vendilion Click that I'm going to play anyway. My opponent goes Dark Confidant, so now that really makes me feel like maybe I screwed up with this Lightning Bolt. Because I do want to kill this Dark Confidant. There's 2 ways of beating a Dark Confidant. You kill it, or you try to race the opponent. And I'm in a decent spot to race the opponent. I could play Master the Pearl Trident, attack with the Silver Gilladept. If they don't block, they take 3 damage, and I'm threatening a Lord of Atlantis next turn and attack with the Mutavault and the rest of the team. So that's a decent plan, but I do believe I go for the Lightning Bolt and we just attack with the Mutavault here. And that's not bad, and if our opponent follows up with, like, Liliana the Veil, she can't defend herself. Beautiful. Opponent plays land, pass. That's where we want them to be. That's where we want this game to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to attack for 2, and we can start playing Vendilion Click on their turn. Make sure that they don't use up their mana on our turn. We're going to play at flash speed, and our deck is nice and threat dense. We're going to attack with Silver Gilladept. And they take the damage. We play a land, and we pass. Now our opponent plays Lightning Bolt on the Silver Gilladept. And that's the advantage of being able to play at flash speed with this deck. They were anticipating that we would play something good on our turn to Lightning Bolt, like one of the Lords, although, you know, that's potentially something we could have played on the first main phase, but it's still possible for us to play it on the second main phase. They were saving the Lightning Bolt for just a much bigger creature. That bigger creature didn't come around, so now they Lightning Bolt the Silver Gilladept. Whereas if we played the Lord earlier, there's actually a greater chance that they kill the Silver Gilladept and they don't take any damage, and then they deal with the Lord on the next turn. once they know what we have played. Alright, they play a land, pass, so I go click, and end of turn, target them. And I've sort of... The fact that they're not playing anything suggests that they have a lot of removal in hand, and I definitely was at risk of a Kolaghan's Command here. But with the Mutavault and the 2 Lords, I figured the Kolaghan's Command couldn't be that bad. I mean, I'm not thrilled about this, but, you know, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So I get rid of the Trickster, because I think that's the card that is worth the least. And there's just a Lightning Bolt in hand. And I thought for a very long time, do I let them keep the Lightning Bolt or do I dump this? Because, like, the Lightning Bolt can just trade with a creature, but I'll still have 2 creatures to their nothing. But, and, like, if I get rid of the Lightning Bolt, I mean, they could draw a Tarmogoyf, and that will be a very good card in this situation. In the end, I decided, let's take the Lightning Bolt because it still deals with our board. If they draw nothing, I think that if they draw something, that's okay. We can stall the game out to a point where maybe we can deal with it. But if they draw nothing, we're going to win very, very quickly. So I believe I fetch to thin my deck. And I draw Cryptic Command, which is great. But I have to put pressure on the battlefield first. So our opponent potentially has nothing. I'm going to play as if they have nothing. Activate Mutavault, attack. And I think I made a mistake. I'm not sure, but I believe they know about our Master of the Pearl Trident, but they don't know about the Lord of Atlantis. So the correct Lord to play here was the Master of the Pearl Trident, but it didn't matter. We won the game. All right, so that was game 1. Let's move on to game 2. Now, this is a matchup where, you know, when you're up against Jund, you want to be as threat dense as possible, and exchanging the Aether Vial for Fairy Conclave, this is where you're going to see super big dividends. Now, not necessarily like we need that in this matchup. We don't need more of an advantage against Jund. I think we have enough. I think we do. We have a decent Jund matchup. We have enough game that we don't need more. But like this is where like Fairy Conclave is going to go way over the top of a Jund player instead of having Aether Vial. So let's look at the sideboard. How did I sideboard? It's an attrition based matchup, so I still took out a land. I took out most of the Lightning Bolts. You could maybe I should have left 2. So I have something for Dark Confidant, but for the most part, Lightning Bolt doesn't kill anything. Like, it can't kill a Tarmogoyf, for example, or a Tasigur. So, like, Lightning Bolt just has no business in the deck. But it can kill, I mean, you can Trickster a Tarmogoyf and then Lightning Bolt it. That's a line. But for the most part, I don't really care to do that. I brought in the 2 relics and 2 other cards. What else is in my sideboard? I left the Force Negation. Like, Force Negation's not good in this matchup. What else did I bring in? Oh, the Spreading Seasons. Yes, I brought in the Spreading Seasons. And I took out a land because it's an attrition-based matchup. I have 24 lands. I can afford to get rid of one of them. Maybe I can get rid of 2. I'm not sure. But I prefer to not be mana choked in this matchup, to be honest. Especially since like my lands are threats anyway. So flooding out on the lands is not that big of a deal. They dodge the Planeswalkers. Like, dodges Liliana of the Veil, Liliana of the Last Hope, Ren and 6, so I don't care. And so we took out some Lightning Bolts, but potentially I could keep 2 Lightning Bolts in the deck. If I remember, this is a slaughtering. Like, this just shows... And my opponent kept a 7-card hand. So they're going to Thoughtseize us. They take the Lord of Atlantis. Most of the time, you should be taking the Silvergill Adapt. Pending my opponent's hand, for example, let's say they have Ren and 6 in hand, it might be correct to leave the Silvergill Adept because Lord of Atlantis will protect the Silvergill Adept in the future. Or sorry, if they take Silvergill Adept, Ren and 6 cannot kill either of these creatures. So pending their hand, Lord of Atlantis is the correct thing, but usually they should be taking the Silvergill Adept because this is card advantage. So they just play their second land drop for the turn and pass. Oh, also it's better to take the Lord if they have Plague Engineer, because that makes it very difficult for me to protect any of these creatures. So I can draw a card off a Silvergill Adept, but it basically cycles because the Plague Engineer kills it. So there are real reasons to taking the Lord over the Silvergill Adept in this matchup. I draw a Lord. I don't even remember what I do here though. probably I play Silvergill Adept, just because that's usually just what you should do. And then you got Wrenn and 6 or Plague Engineer. Well, this thing's going to die then, I guess. They just Fatal Push it. So that's good. That was a good exchange. That helps me win. That was a winning exchange for me. So they do play Liliana the Veil. But here's the thing. I have way more cards in my hand than my opponent does. They have 3. So if they want to tick up, I mean, they're going to eat up their own cards more than they're going to eat up my cards. So I believe I just discard, like, I think Spire Bluff Canal, because I can play Fairy Conclave next turn and attack for 2. So I attack the Liliana the Veil for 2. I'm not going to commit anything to the board, so that Liliana can't edict anything. My opponent got rid of a land card in their hand, but I just have, like, way more cards than them. Play Fair Conclave. Now next turn I can attack with Mutavault and Flash and Brineborn Cutthroat or Merfolk Trickster. Okay, we gotta discard a card. I'll get rid of the Polluted Delta. Or maybe I'll get rid of the island, but Polluted Delta probably is fine too, because I only have... Oh no, I have the Royal Scions still in the deck. The Royal Scions is still in the deck. They get rid of a land. So their hand actually wasn't very good. They should have thought seize the Lord if their hand was so mana heavy. They have a second Liliana the Veil. Taking up again. And now I believe I dump one of these creatures. It might be Brineborn, because I really want to be able to play attack with Mutavault again and then hold up like Merfolk Trickster to play on the next turn. And if I draw a land, that's fine. It's going to get eaten by the Liliana the Veil anyway. I draw a Brazen Borrower. That's actually very interesting now. So let's say my opponent discard... They draw like a land, play it, tick up Liliana the Veil. Now I can Brazen Borrower the Liliana in response to the +1 ability, and they'll discard their Liliana the Veil. Beautiful! Anyway, I believe I still attack with the Mutavault, because there's no guarantee I'm actually going to kill the Liliana. They could also play a Tarmogoyf. And that's something I'll also want to Brazen Borrower back to my opponent's hand. Dark Confidant. That's exactly what I want to bounce back to my opponent's hand. So I fetch for a land, Steam Vents, bounce the Dark Confidant. So now Liliana makes my opponent discard their Dark Confidant. We get rid of a Merfolk Trickster. Now we have this Lord that can kill the Liliana the Veil on 3. Opponent's empty-handed. They have nothing. They have absolutely nothing. So we're going to play this Lord. Activate the Mutavault. Attack for 3. Look at this. Okay, take a moment to look at this board state. They have nothing. They have absolutely... My giant opponent has nothing. I've got Master of the Pearl Trident, Brineborn Cutthroat, Brazen Borrower in Exile, and 3-man lands. That we have attritioned out the attrition-based deck. I don't even care if they had a bunch of lands earlier on in the game. The Assassin's Trophy this, it doesn't matter. It's all a foregone conclusion. I just have way too much stuff. I just pass the turn. I don't even attack with my lands. That means my opponent now knows I'm going to attack with... I'm going to play like more stuff from my hand, and they're just doomed. So at their upkeep, they scoop. Because they know that... I mean, they probably can't even beat this card, basically. Anyway, that was round 3. Let's move on to round 4. So we won the die roll, and we can keep this hand. You know, without Aether Vial, the range of keepable hands are so high. Or just a lot higher. And good quality keepable hands. Like, if you keep a 1-lander with Vial, you're getting your 2-drops out on, like, turn 3, usually. Whereas if you keep a 2-lander, you're getting your 2-drops out on turn 2. So our opponent starts off with Slippery Bogles. So we're up against Bogles. And by the way, Cryptic Command is like the best card in this matchup. So if there is a situation where they only have Daybreak Coronet and one other aura, you just bounce the other aura, and because there's not another aura on the creature, Daybreak Coronet falls off. But let's say your opponent has like a million auras on a creature, then you can Cryptic Command tap the team to prevent them from attacking, and then you attack into them. Now you might need to chain a few of these together, but the card interacts very well against the Bogles deck. So I don't remember what I do here. I think I play Silvergill Adept right now because I do want to curve into this Cryptic Command as quickly as possible. Oh, okay, I don't do it. Maybe I wait till next turn. I think I fetched because I was planning on doing that, and then I thought better of it, and I decided, you know what? Let's like flash in a Brineborn or a Merfolk Trickster instead, and see if we can block this thing. If there's like no good aura on it. Like for example, let's say they play Rancor on this thing attack, I would just flash in a creature block. They get their Rancor back, but getting rid of the Bogle might be worth it. Core Spirit Dancer. Okay, so that means I actually want to hold on to my Merfolk Trickster for the future to make sure Core Spirit Dancer isn't going to be online. So now I believe I just flash in a Brineborn Cutthroat here. So there's like two sorts of hands of Bogles, which makes the deck pretty unstable. One range of hands is where they've got a lot of auras but no mana. They have like 1 mana to work with, and they can only play 1 aura a turn, and in that case you can race them because they're just choked on mana. And another version of hands is when they have too much mana and very few auras, like maybe just 1 or 2, and they're not that great. And sometimes they might depend on this Core Spirit Dancer to really carry the game, to like draw cards off of those very few auras. So I intend on trickstering the Core Spirit Dancer. I believe I trickster the Core Spirit Dancer on their next turn. But that's how I'm like preparing this game. And I draw Fairy Conclave. That's fantastic to draw it on my 3rd land drop instead of my 4th land drop. I attack with the Brineborn Cutthroat because if either of them block, I'm sort of fine with it. There can be a point. Let's say they block with Slippery Bogle, and they just pile a bunch of stuff on Core Spirit Dancer. Then I can just bounce the Core Spirit Dancer back to their hand. They lose all the auras, and they have to work for all that crap all over again. So I play the Fairy Conclave. Now I go upkeep. Let's trickster your Core Spirit Dancer. Now if you want to play any auras this turn, you're not going to draw any cards. And they decide, you know what? I want to use my mana this turn. I don't know if this is the best use of their mana. They play Ethereal Armor on the Slippery Bogle. And they get him for 3 damage. I'm fine with that, because I think I can attack back for more. And they play Glades Cover Scout. So I'm inclined to believe that they were on the sort of hand where they have a lot of mana, but they don't actually have a lot of auras. Brazen Borrower is very, very good here, because if my opponent plays Daybreak Coronet on the Slippery Bogle, I can just bounce the Ethereal Armor, and Daybreak falls off, or I can bounce, if they pile a bunch of stuff on here, I can bounce Core Spirit Dancer, and then all the auras fall off. I don't remember what I do here. It might be like I don't remember what I do here. My opponent's in chump block mode, keeping their life total high. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Because maybe the better option was to play the... I'm going to hold up Brazen Borrower here, but I could play Master of the Pearl Trident instead and attack for a lot more. And that would be more or less setting up lethal. Or what's the plan here? I could also go... Maybe my ending plan is I bounce something with Brazen Borrower, like even Core Spirit Dancer, and then on the following turn I Cryptic Command tap the team, and then I can play Master of the Pearl Trident and attack for lethal. Oh, and I get another Lord. That's very nice. And I believe I just played the Lord here. So I just put a bunch of stuff on the battlefield, hope my opponent can't kill me with like... They would have to chain a lot of things together, especially with Trample. So anyway, they go for Ethereal Armor. Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly how this game played out. I have a lot of lines here, as you can see. So my plan was let them have one good turn, even if it's with lifelink. They attack me, I attack back for hopefully a lot more, and I Cryptic Command their team at least for one turn. But I think playing the Lord was too ambitious. Or what I should have done is just play Lord, don't play Silvergill Adept. I think that was the best line. So my opponent doesn't know what to do, because if they attack with both creatures, I can just chump block with Silvergill Adept, and then potentially kill them. What is this? 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one Lord and a land would win, or even just one Lord would win. So they decide not to attack with anything. I think they should attack with at least one creature. Or maybe they're still afraid one Lord beats them. Lord, they block the 5 power 1, 4, 8, 11. Also, they're just afraid of a Lord. So maybe they're just waiting for one more turn to get a like lifelink or something. But anyway, I've got Cryptic Command. I believe I just cast it, tap their team, and win. Cryptic Command! I love this card. Love me some Cryptic Commands. Alright, so that was game 1. We're going to go into game 2. So our hand isn't beautiful. I don't even remember. Do I keep this hand? I think it's keepable, but it's not the most beautiful, because I prefer to have at least... If you want to beat Bogles, you can't just be all disruptive. You need to have some threats. But I think I keep this. What was my sideboard plan? So we take out all the lightning bolts, which is not entirely necessary. You could keep some for the core Spirit Dancer. So I take out all the lightning bolts and the Royal Scions for the 4 Force and Negations, 2 Spreading Seizes, and that's it. Yeah, so Spreading Seas can sometimes win the game against them. They just go, they just have a 1 lander, and you Spreading Seas it, and then they're dead. And then we also bring in the 4 Force Negations, because this can counter the high impact auras. And I would say the high impact ones are Daybreak Coronet, of course. Anything that can give the creatures like unblockable. So things like, I don't know, giving it flight, or spectral. I can't remember. There's one that gives it pro creatures. Rancor sometimes is a problem. Now, Ethereal Armor is usually not that big of a deal. It can deal the most damage, but it's the easiest to chump block. So anyway, I actually think I keep this hand. It does have some good stuff. Like, I can... Brazen Borrowing Auras is not that bad. So our opponent goes land pass, which suggests they have either a core Spirit Dancer hand, or they're going to try to get the beat down with the Forest, the Dryad Arbor, and that appears to be the case. So too bad I don't have my lightning bolts. I mean, I didn't anticipate to play this sort of game. But anyway, they play Rancor. And I decided not to do anything about this, because I could potentially interact with this land better than I can interact with a Bogle. Now, I can bounce it with Brazen Borrower. Borrower says, return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. This is a land. It's a Forest Dryad. It's a land creature. Also, very important to note, Spreading Seas won't kill the creature or anything like that. It will just turn it from a forest to an island, but it'll still be a creature. Because this is just permanently a creature. It's not like a creature until end of turn. I believe I just play creature here. So I can't be too scared of any aura, because I have like double Force and Negation up. The Umbra is a bit annoying, but it's still a situation where I don't think our opponent can race us. I still actually think we can race them with the Brazen Borrower. Our opponent is now like on... Our opponent, I guess, feels the same way. If they don't have another land that they can't race us. If they played something like Ethereal Armor, that's something I would force a negation for sure. So things like Spider Umbra, it doesn't put a lot... It's a 4-power creature, but it's still like a 5-turn clock. So I think I can race that with Brazen Borrower and a Master of the Pearl Trident and like some Force Negations. Now, I don't remember what I do here. I might just pass... Or maybe I attack with this thing with the plan that if they block, I'm going to bounce the Spider Umbra and then they lose their creature. I actually think that's what I do. Oh no, I don't attack. I don't attack. So they find Wooded Foothills. Now they're getting... Now they're excited. They're getting excited. Core Spirit Dancer. Okay, that's fine. Now I don't remember what I do. What do I... Oh, okay, so that... they tap their Dryad Armor to put a Rancor on Core Spirit Dancer. That's where I bounce it with Brazen Borrower, and they lose the Rancor, and now they have to... they may not even have that white mana source next turn, because I can Spreading Seas it. So they lose the Rancor, but they do cycle their card. I do believe I Spreading Seas the Temple Guard and play a Lord, and then start attacking. I fetch first to thin my deck. Do I still play the Lord? I think I still play the Lord here, because I want a Trickster that's either that Core Spirit Dancer or that Dryad Arbor in the future. So I want to get, like, a clock going here. So I have 6 power in play. I actually have 8 power because of the Fairy Conclave, but I've got a lot of power that I can now attack every turn. Spirit Mantle, that, like I said, that's a dangerous card. It has protection from creatures, and now I can't, like, block it with Merfolk Trickster. So if I remember correctly, I just force pitching Force. So my opponent's going to be really hard-pressed to win by next turn, because next turn, I'm just going to Merfolk Trickster, tap this thing down, and then hopefully I'll just win from there. Because I attack for 6 here. They go to 6, and I guess I have to dodge a Vial-less Summer, maybe? Maybe? I play Merfolk Trickster, find another Lord. So they're like really dead, even if they have, like, I don't know, a Daybreak Coronet hand where they play Daybreak Coronet. Let's say they play a land, Daybreak Coronet, and they have Vial-less Summer to protect. They gain 10 life, they go to 16. I think next turn I play a Lord and attack for 4, 8, 13, 15? Damn, we're actually a mana short. No, we're not, because they would lose 1 life because of the Horizon Canopy. So they'd actually go down to 15, casting the Daybreak Coronet. And it's only +3/+3, so it's only 7 life. So they only go to 13, but then down to 12. Am I getting this all correct? I hope I do. Anyway, Daybreak Coronet would not be, wouldn't even work. And now our opponent resigns. So, very nice win against Bogles. And I think no Vial lets us curve out really smoothly. And allows us, and in this game, it never happened, but potentially in this game, we could hard cast the Force Negation for 3 mana and not have to 2 for 1 ourselves. So that worked out for us very well. And I really like having so much mana that I can, like, play Lords and actually hard cast stuff like this, and then potentially, like, actually cast it back again. So anyway, that was round 4. Let's move on to round 5. So I won the die roll, and I think I won most of my die rolls this league. Either I won 3 or won 4, so always keep that in mind whenever you go 5-0. Usually it's because things have been going well for you. Die roll definitely shined on me this league. It would be much more interesting to see how well this deck can run when it's on the draw. But we start off with Fairy Conclave, and our hand is just nice. And we're up against a Celestial Colonnade, so that means either Blue-White Control, Blue-White Stoneblade, all that good stuff. I draw Mutavault. If I remember, I might play Pluto Delta here. No, I play the Island. And I play, and I play Merfolk Trickster right now, because I want to get under Counter Magic, like Spell Snare or Mana Leak. Like, I can't beat Counter Magic in this deck. We don't have Aether Vial, we don't have Cavern of Souls. So if I want to play around Counter Magic, I gotta play this thing, like, on my main phase. And I can't counter anything anyway, I, like, can't use the mana. Stoneforge Mystic! Alright, so Stoneforge Mystic is here. Not bad for us, because we've got Lightning Bolt, and if our opponent ever tries to hardcast the Batterskull, we'll be ready with the Cryptic Command. I do believe that they found Batterskull. It's not saying so here. There it is. There it is. So my decision is easy. Let's just play... actually, no. First I attack. See if they want to block. You never know. Maybe they do. And I can save my Lightning Bolt for, I don't know, the second Stoneforge Mystic. And we kill the Stoneforge Mystic and pass. So Field of Ruin. Now that actually changes how I want to play this hand, because we have valuable cards in our hand. Now there already is a manland here, but I would rather this thing went bye-bye than this one, because this one is easier to activate. So I'm going to hold off on playing either of these cards for as long as possible, so that I incentivize my opponent to Field of Ruin, the Fairy Conclave, and then we start rolling out these other valuable cards. So we draw Lightning Bolt. I play the Pluto Delta, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because I'm sandbagging our valuable lands. We want to exchange this thing for another card if we start flooding out, which is not bad. So they go for it. So they attack the Fairy Conclave, We get a land. Not bad. They opt. I can't see or know what they did with it. They play another land. They pass. We're gonna keep the lightning bolt because that can hit a snapcaster mage, and it can also target Stoneforge Mystic. So we still want to keep these lightning bolts. I'm thinking about why I didn't crack this polluted delta, and maybe it wasn't necessary. I genuinely don't want to draw my lands in this matchup, because if I do, then because I'm running out of things to fetch for steam vents. I only have 4 islands and 1 steam vent, so if I draw an island, then there's only one more thing I can fetch for with this fetch land. Anyway, I play my Fiery Islet, attack for 2. And with that Field of Ruin, now there's even less things I can fetch for. I have to have fetched with this polluted delta, like at the end of my opponent's turn. My opponent goes opt. And I actually have to now keep this Fiery Islet because this is my only source of red mana. So they play another Stoneforge Mystic. They get, I believe, a Sword of Fire and Ice. So here's the deal. I have to play around Mana Leak and Spell Snare somehow. And the reason for that... And that's why I actually didn't Cryptic Command the Stoneforge Mystic. Our opponent had nothing to do for... Oh, I'm out of focus. Come on, get back into focus. Focus on me, damn it. Okay, so my opponent has been doing nothing this game, which implies that they actually have a lot of interaction in their hand, generally in the form of counterspells. We're talking like Spell Snare, Mana Leak, maybe Logic Knot. I can't remember if the Stoneblade decks play that. But definitely some counter magic. So I don't want to Cryptic Command the Stoneforge Mystic. I need to find a better spot for this Cryptic Command. I've got interaction for the Stoneforge Mystic, like Lightning Bolt. So how to use it right now? I believe I decide to go like Brineborn Cutthroat at end of turn with 3 mana up. Okay, let's see what I do. But I just want to say, like, I have to play around counter magic. That's very important. So I play the Brineborn Cutthroat. And by the way, against Stoneblade decks, they don't always have They have like rarely have what's it called? But my opponent plays Spell Queller. But anyway, I don't want. I'm not afraid of committing a lot of creatures against Stoneblade. They don't have Supreme Verdict in their main deck, or if they do, they have very few copies, and you're safe to commit a lot of creatures to the battlefield. Go look up the recent Stoneblade list to get an idea of, you know, are they moving more in the Supreme Verdict direction or less? But in general, they're not very heavy on Supreme Verdict, so I don't mind committing a lot of creatures. But they go Spell Queller, and now I'm like, hey, this is awesome. This is really cool. So they go Spell Queller. Take Brineborn Cutthroat. Now we have a great target for Lightning Bolt? How does this work now? Because now if I Lightning Bolt this thing, I don't have Lightning Bolt for Stoneforge Mystic. Now I don't remember what I do. Okay, let's see what I do. I have both the options. I go for the Spell Queller. I'm on the aggro plan. I'm going to aggro out my opponent. So I get my creature back. I should fetch here, because I do not want to draw that last land. If I draw that last island, I'm doomed. Draw another Fiery Islet, not bad. If I am not mistaken, I attack with both the creatures, because I don't mind Stoneforge Mystic trading with Brineborn. That means my opponent has to tap out if they want to hardcast that Batterskull. But they don't, they just take the damage. Because like I said, I'm trying to play around mana leaks and crap like that. And I'm not yet at the point where I have 7 mana where I can Cryptic Command and hold up mana for mana leak. So my opponent plays a land. They might get into a situation where they have 7 mana anyway. So they hard cast their Sword of Fire and Ice. But that was with the second Stoneforge, this Stoneforge Mystic that they played. And I guess their intention is to activate like get the Batterskull in play with the Stoneforge Mystic. So I decide to fetch for more information. Like, let's... oh no, I don't do anything. Well, I thought I cracked a Fiery Islet here. What do I do? I have to do it end of turn. Yeah, I got a Merfolk Trickster. Now what do I do? Cryptic Command, tap all creatures my opponents control, draw a card. So with Merfolk Trickster, and I'm tapping all the creatures, because if I tap the Stoneforge Mystic, they can't put Batterskull in play. If they put Batterskull in play, it's going to get tapped, and I can attack for 6, put them to 4, and then whatever they equip... Actually, I don't care where they put the Sword of Fire and Ice. I intend on using Merfolk Trickster on the Batterskull to get in the last... And then after that, I just get in the last points of damage with like my 3 creatures, because they're at 4 life. So that's the plan. If they play Mana Leak on Cryptic Command, then that's not bad, because then they can't get the Batterskull in play this turn, and they can't attack with Lifelink the next turn. So if they play Mana Leak here, that's fine. I'll just attack again with everything. I'm actually attacking for a lot more, because Brineborn Cutthroat gets a trigger here. And then I'm attacking for 7, put them to 3. But they Spell Pierce! Oh, God! I didn't really see that coming. You know, I can expect, Mana Leak and Spell Snare, but Spell Pierce completely blows me out, because not only does it counter my Cryptic Command, but now they can still play the Batterskull. Alright, so we gotta... I'm not gonna pay the 2 for the Spell Pierce. Okay, now what are we gonna do? If we top deck a Lord, we win. We don't top deck a Lord, but that was not bad. That was pretty damn good. That was pretty damn good. So I play Fiery Islet, I activate, and I attack with everything. And now, if they play the Batterskull, I have 2 options, but the primary option is bounce the Germ token with Brazen Borrower. And if that somehow doesn't work because of Force of Negation, I can still Trickster the Germ for a turn. And then try to deal with it later, even though I'll have a sort of... Well, maybe that... If somehow this got Force of Negated, I guess I have to let it eat up a creature, then I have to Trickster on my next turn, because the Sword of Fire and Ice will get out of control. But the plan... Like, my opponent has very few cards in hand, so... hopefully they don't have a blue Force of Negation or a blue card with Force of Negation. So this Brazen Borrower thing worked completely. I attack for 7. They go to 2. Now they're just basically dead. And like whatever you want to do, I've got this Trickster up. So my opponent now has the plan of bounce Batterskull back to hand, replay it with Stoneforge Mystic, but it doesn't work because I've got Trickster. So I just play like Master of the Pearl Trident just in case they have... I don't know, it really doesn't matter. This is all lethal. This is all worth lethal. They Path to Exile, that's sure, that I don't care. I guess it would be a problem if it was a Snapcaster Mage, but even then, it wouldn't... Snapcaster Mage Path taps them out that they can't get Batterskull back, and I would still be in good shape. So they return Batterskull back to hand, they replay the Batterskull, I play the Trickster. Look at the things you can do when you have so much mana to bounce and stuff like that. I love it. I absolutely love it. Something similar might have happened if we had Vial, but I really like having so much mana to be able to do play multiple creatures at once. And also the mana might have mattered because of the damn Cryptic Command, that stupid Spell Pierce. And the Mana Leak. The Mana Leak. So the mana actually mattered, you know, trying to fight against things like Mana Leak. But anyway, so that was game 1 against Stoneblade. A nice victory. We played this game, this dance about, you know, trying to get this Batterskull in play, but I think it worked out for me more than it worked out for my opponent. So anyway, yeah, that was game 1. Let's move on to game 2. So I have like 4 lands, creatures, all flash speed. I'm good to go. Let's keep this. And like turn 2, if my opponent goes turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic, not a big deal. We can bounce the Germ token with Brazen Borrower. That's a line. but they don't have anything on turn 2. That's fine. Alright, so let's just pass the turn. Let's play the pass the turn game. I guess I play something here to get under, like, Mana Leak counter magic. If they have Spell Snare, then they Spell Snare this. But I need to play something early, because I can't beat a Teferi. So I might as well have something on the battlefield that, if they play Teferi, they bounce it, then I can kill it with Fairy Conclave. So I need to put pressure on the battlefield. They do have the Teferi. I guess a similar situation would have happened anyway. They would play Teferi, then in response I could play Brineborn Cutthroat, so getting this thing out early is not that big of a deal. But like I said in my deck tech, I think you want to like tap out on the earlier turns of the game, because later on that's when you can start playing at flash speed. So anyway, they bounce this. And I think Teferi is so dangerous. If I'm not mistaken, I play like Spire Bluff Canal and just attack and kill it. You cannot leave. The Teferi, our opponent being able to play all sorts of sorceries at instant speed and just lock... I mean, they would lock us down. Teferi just destroys this deck. But fortunately, we have enough man lands that we don't have to worry about Teferi too much. Alright, so remember, they got Spell Queller, so sometimes we're going to have to be real patient. So I have a lot of land drops to make, so I decide to... Do I do anything here? Okay, I play something. If they want to Spell Queller, I do have some room to fight over it, like Brazen Borrower, then Brazen Borrower the next turn, and then maybe click them. Anyway, they don't do anything here. A legitimate line is just pass the turn back and forth. Now, I'm essentially offering a trade between this Blinkmoth Nexus and my Brineborn Cutthroat. You know, it's up to you whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I decide that's what I'm gonna do. I think my mana advantage, it would if they block with this, I would just have a much higher mana advantage over my opponent, which I think in these games is a factor. They play On Thin Ice. I really like that people are playing this card, because it just gives us an option to like bounce this at end of turn with Brazen Borrower and then sneak in random damage that we normally wouldn't have. So it's not Path to Exile at all. I think I just play another Brazen Borrower. I mean Brineborn Cutthroat. Or maybe I'm more mana efficient this time? No, just another Brineborn Cutthroat. Like, this game can play out so many different ways. I can't remember exactly how the game goes. Now, if I'm not mistaken... Well, there's two ways I can do this. I can Brazen Borrower now, but then I get hit by Spell Pierce. I don't have the mana to pay for it. Or I wait on my turn to Brazen Borrower this. And then I don't get beat by Spell Pierce. And then... But the other thing is, if I play Brazen Borrower here and they Spell Pierce, then I probably can Brazen Borrower on my next turn. They're too tapped out to like prevent a Vendilion Click on their against them. So I go for the Brazen Borrower line that potentially can get them to tap out. And if I get, look, it resolved, so I'm really going to blow out my opponent. So we get the Brineborn Cutthroat. They decide to fetch. For no reason, mind you. And on my turn... I'm relatively confident they have no counterspell. So I'm going to... Oh, I'm only going to attack for 6? Wouldn't pass. I was pretty sure I was going to play Vendilion Click this turn. Oh, maybe I do now because they tap out and they can't play Mana Leak. Alright, so now we're going to go for the Vendilion Click because they can't counter this in any way. They can't Mana Leak it. They can't do anything to it. We get to look at their hand. And their hand sucks. Like, the hand is bad. Force Negation and Spell Queller, we already beat that hand. Like, we have got a Lightning Bolt lined up against the Spell Queller. Oh, how did I sideboard this game? I don't think I did much. I didn't even bring in the Force Negations. I didn't even do anything. I just didn't sideboard. I think I can take out one land, though, because this is a Field of Ruin Path to Exile deck. So I think that's incorrect. I should take out a Spire Bluff Canal or a fetch land and bring in one Force Negation. I think that's fine. That's fair. Just to counter their Force Negations, their Teferis. Bringing in some of those counterspells have to be good. So if I'm not mistaken, I leave them with this because I can beat all of it. I don't care about any of this. Yeah, it draws 0 cards. So they don't draw anything. I have perfect information. I pass the turn. They play Flooded Strand. That's a card that we knew about. Do I fetch here? Why not? Let's fetch. Get the Steam Vents. Draw another Polluted Delta, looks like. Whatever. So I play Lord of Atlantis. So I play into their Spell Queller. And I go for Petty Theft. And I do this because they can hardcast the Force Negation. But then I Lightning Bolt. I do lose the creature if they Force Negate this. But I think it's a fair trade because I get to Lightning Bolt this thing and then I get in for a big attack because now they're too tapped out to block with their Blinkmoth Nexus. And now they're like basically depleted of cards. They have 2 cards in hand. One of them we know about. We've got so many resources on the battlefield. We've got the Mutavault, the Fairy Conclave, the Fiery Islet, the Brazen Borrower still in exile. So I believe I fire up the Mutavault attack for 6. They go to 7. We've got basically lethal by next turn. I guess they can chump block one more turn with the Blinkmoth Nexus. But anyway, got a Cryptic Command. Everything's coming up Millhouse for us. So I activate, get in for an attack. They go Cryptic Command, I Cryptic Command back. I fetch first because I actually want to keep up the Fiery Islet. Counter draw, we draw another Cryptic Command. How do we lose? I just attack with all these things. If they want to block with Blinkmoth, that's fine. They have almost nothing left. And they play Stoneforge Mystic. I don't care. They get a Batterskull. I don't care. I don't care about any of this. They're empty-handed. We've got the Cryptic Command. We don't even need it because we draw Lightning Bolt and just bolt their face. So you could pick and choose however you want to win. You want to win with Island Walk with your Mutavault. You could tap everything down with Cryptic Command. You could fly over all that crap with Fairy Conclave. There's a million ways to win the game. So that was anyway. That was the league. Let's go back to the deck. So it went 5-0, just annihilating everybody. So I'm not proposing that this is superior to an Aether Vial version of Merfolk, but I want to. I want people to be open-minded to. I want people to be open to the possibility that this is a playable version of Merfolk and potentially very competitive. And I might work more on this, and certainly I could even play more one drops. I don't know exactly what, instead of the Royal Scions. And of course, there's also the mono blue version that I would be interested in playing. And there's like 1-drops like Peak, for example, that I'd be interested in playing. But I don't know if we need Peak if we have Vendilion Click. That is basically our Peak effect. There's a lot of different ways it could be built without the Vial. A lot of different ways that could be built without the Vial. And I'd be much more curious to know how well this deck plays on the draw when I'm trying to play catch-up. Because we do have resources. Like, I have a removal spell. I have a bounce spell. I have a tap spell. So it's not like I'm dead in the water on the draw. Like, I've got resources. And then post-board, we got Force of Negation. That's also a resource to help us on the draw. So there are very serious resources now available to us. And we can play at flash speed. So we always get a lot of information. Are we going to bounce something, or are we just going to add to the board? So and same thing when we get to turn 3 with Vendilion Click. Are we gonna tap something down, or are we gonna bounce something, or are we gonna play a 3-drop? And we have those options. And we get to 4 mana. We have the same situation all over again. So being able to play at flash speed is good, and I like the fact that we're really threat dense with the man lands. These are going to be very useful against Tron, very useful against Control, Jund, all those decks. Plague Engineer, I don't care. Name Merfolk. I've got tons of fairies now. We're just in fairy world here. The fairy's going to get in for the attack just as badly as the Merfolk did. So we're not even that weak to Plague Engineer. And who knows, like I said, there's so much more room to try more stuff. Hypnotic Sprite could be a really cool card. Archmage's Charm, a really good card on the draw to help us catch up by just stealing their one best threat. You know, I'd love to take an 8/8 champion of the parish. Oh yeah, give it to me. Give me your champion. It's my champion now. But that was, I don't know, if you let me know what you think of this list. Are you interested in playing in a deck that has no Aether Vial? I know we've seen Aether Vial-less lists on this channel, but it was with poor folk. We were playing budget. This is not budget. You're going to pay through the nose for some of these cards, but it's a competitive list, and I'm going to be interested in playtesting more of it going on into the future. So you might actually see more vial-less Merfolk coming from me. Maybe one thing before I go, I think Simic probably. I think this. Oh, I just don't have the right version. I'm now playing with the collector's edition. I think Simic probably still wants Aether Vial. It's still pretty low to the ground, or low to the ground enough. Oh, get out of here! I don't really need you. I don't know what else to put in this deck over the Nimble Obstructionist. Maybe probably the Vendilion Click. A lot of people ask me, what are we playing instead of Oko? Play like Vendilion Click, Brazen Borrowers, stuff like that. Maybe even Mirror Regery, or even some more one-drops like Benthic Biomancer. But I think this deck that plays a lot less at flash speed probably wants to still play with Aether Vial, and the curve is a lot lower, especially with the one-drops like Comenda Speaker. So I can totally see the Simic list being more Aether Vial oriented. But when we're talking about like mono blue or these sort of mid-rangey decks, I think there's a lot of innovation to be had dumping the Aether Vial. But more playtesting will determine that. If you play Aether Vial list, let me know. Let me know on Twitter, Facebook, how well it's doing for you. So anyway, we're going to thank all my patrons supporting me on Patreon. We're also going to thank the manabase.com, the MTG Mastermind, and Card Hoarder for being our sponsors. This has been Nikachu playing vial-less Merfolk in Modern.